I've recently had a chance to see Pacific Rim twice, in fact, and I feel like doing a review on it. It does help that I've seen it twice so I can actually remember things correctly. This will be a spoiler filled review, so if you don't want spoilers, probably should skip this, but in the interim, this is a very good film. Go see it, you will enjoy it. And to start off the review, start off with a bunch of flashbacks essentially to when the Kaji initially started attacking Earth. Trespasser, the very first one, utterly annihilates San Francisco, and then proceeds to go on to two more cities before the military finally brought it down. In the movie, they say it was tanks, planes, and everything else. In the books, it says nukes. They don't really mention nukes a lot, and not quite sure why, but I guess directorial fiat, essentially. One of the things you learn about them very quickly is they're essentially walking biochem factories. They will intoxicate the entire area with poison and other such filth, making blowing them to little bits very unoptimal. Then it goes on to the next attacks in Manila and Cabo, and essentially the point that they couldn't keep doing this anymore. It was just going to keep happening. You had to find a much better way of dealing with them, because losing a city every time one attacks is a losing strategy. So it moves on to the Jaeger program, something you can go toe to toe with the things, beat them down, and move the body out of the city before it, leaches too much toxin. Initially, they start winning very well, and that's essentially how the movie starts out. They're high on victory. We can do anything. We don't need to worry about the future. This is kind of a recurring theme throughout the movie of complacency. Anytime someone thinks it's all over, we don't need to worry about anything, something bad is about to happen. This goes for both sides, but I'll get to that later. The first fight of the film, Gypsy Danger versus Knifehead, really does show this. A moment of laxity, no matter how well intentioned or well thought out, will mean the end of the fight. Knifehead just rips Gypsy Danger to pieces in almost a split second. Raleigh, the main character, loses his brother almost immediately as he's torn from the cockpit and thrown, and he barely manages to finish the fight and get the Gypsy Danger back to shore. He essentially quits the Jaeger program to that and just kind of moves on from that. 5 years of just wandering, trying to make peace with the decisions he made that cost his brother his life. We get another, not really flashback, but sidetrack to how the Jaeger program is doing, and it's not going well. The Kaji are getting much bigger, they're getting much heavier, they're getting much more dangerous. You're losing Rangers and Jaegers left and right. And essentially a new plan is formulated called the Wall. The politicians decided essentially to barricade off the Pacific Rim, and that way they won't have to deal with the problem. Stacker of Pentecost, the man in charge of the Jaeger program, obviously thinks this is very stupid. There are many, many flaws in this, and notably that they could probably climb over it, bash through it, or even fly around it, go around it. It wouldn't be difficult at all to circumvent. Many people who've played XCOM doubtlessly have all kinds of flashbacks to having similar scenes go in their game. There's another flash forward at this point in time back to Raleigh, who's building the wall. He's essentially trying to help still, not really living in the past quite so much, but still dwelling on it significantly when Stacker goes out to collect him. I got a lot from this scene that it was essentially Raleigh wanting to die, that he knew this was going to be the last hurrah for him, and he really couldn't take quite managing to live with the knowledge he cost his brother his life. He was connected to him when he died, feeling every moment of it. So they all returned to Shatterdome, essentially from the last Shatterdome in Hong Kong for the last assault, where Stacker of Pentecost plans on detonating a nuclear bomb right above the breach where the Kaji are coming in from. It's obviously a suicide mission. I don't think Raleigh had any intention of doing anything otherwise. Stacker essentially was planning on dying as well. He was initially going to be his co-pilot, and shifted that off to another character called Mako, who we meet pretty much instantly coming into the Shatterdome. She's lost basically her entire family to the Kaji. She wants revenge. After the Shatterdome, you meet the other Rangers, the Chinese triplets, the Russian wife and husband, and the Australians. The Australians are probably the most notable of all the secondary characters because they go out of their way to be. The son, Chuck, really does not like Raleigh and makes this well known. Hercules Hansen, the father, is much more mature about it, having been in the battle essentially from the start. So he's more aware of what's at stake and is more mature. You see little things pop up that don't quite make sense until later, like Stacker's nose will start bleeding for no real reason. You find out eventually radiation sickness. He was one of the first pilots, and ultimately his co-pilot died to cancer, and he himself is slowly dying. Why he wanted to go on the suicide mission? He was dead anyway. The plot moves on. Mako eventually does get paired up as Raleigh's co-pilot, pretty much because there was no other option, and he's probably Stacker thinking that he wasn't going to make it. You see this right after his nose starts bleeding. He's probably thinking that he wasn't going to make it as far as the breach, so someone who could actually go there and potentially come back would be a better bet. They link up their minds, and we see a bit of Mako's past, little child running from a gigantic Kaji who smashed Tokyo to bits. You also see Stacker Pentecost come in and save her, where essentially their lifelong. He adopts her, and that's basically the foundation of their relationship. She sees him as just a superhero, essentially, and tries to emulate that and wants to be a Jaeger pilot as well. She only gets it, really in the last, I'd say, third of the movie, but she gets to live her dream. As the third act opens, we get to the Hong Kong fight. This is probably the best battle that's ever been recorded, and I think most people have said that. We see, the Russians and the Chinese die almost immediately. Striker Eureka, the Australians Jaeger go down to EMP, and Gypsy Danger gets pulled in to take out the last two Kaji. The fight is very well done and is certainly worth it for nothing else than that. Even if you didn't like the other characters, this fight is worth the $10. Gypsy Danger is successful in defeating both of them, and then we move into the last battle, where it's three Kaiju versus the two Jaegers that try to seal the breach. The battle goes, well, obviously successfully. You rarely ever see a movie where the bad guys win, but it does cost a great toll on human life. Striker Eureka is completely destroyed. But it is well done, the last battle, so enjoyable. I do like the recurring symbolism that goes on through the movie. The Kaiju are quite frequently likened to, a hurricane or storm or acts of nature, and that the Jaegers are technology, and with that we can fight nature no matter what. It just depends on, our will to do so. Complacency is another thing. Anytime that someone thinks it's all over or you don't need to do anymore, even it's very subtle on like the Kaji Master side, where they didn't put up any real countermeasures to something getting through the breach and coming on their end. That's what cost them the battle, essentially. You also have the left brain, right brain symbolism that comes in with a lot of characters. One person will be very emotional and empathic. The other person will be rational and thinking. When they combine the two, they're capable of doing much more than both than individually. Mako is much more in tone with the depth of her emotions and much more willing to use them. Raleigh slowly grows into the more rational person that he wasn't in the beginning, and to symbolize as he switches, pilot roles. He's initially on the right, he moves to the left after the 5-year gap between his brother's death and rejoining the Jaeger program. To go on more on what I liked about it, I liked how the characters interacted with each other. They did feel real, and how you would pretty much expect to see people act in that situation. Chuck Hansen has victory to seize, and this is the person that Raleigh would have become had he not lost that fight against Knifehead. He's really irritating, but he does have the most number of Kaji kills, so it's not completely out of line for what you'd expect him to act as, but it's still irritating at times, and in the good way that you want to see him get beaten up, and boy does he. The characters, all very wonderful. Stacker Pentecost, played by Idris Elba, as well noted for being tremendously charismatic, has the best speeches. You could see people following him without any second thought. Mako's another good character, especially after you watch Flashback. The Australians are both very good. The scientists, I initially thought I was going to hate the one. I forget his name. He's played by Matthew Day. I thought I was going to hate him as soon as he starts, praising Kaji. I was expecting one of the characters to break his skull open, especially when he's doing it to the one that killed the main character's brother. He got much better about it, and essentially he got his wish to see Akaji up close and personal, and he really grew and matured after that point. The world itself feels real. People are reacting to the Kaji. There's in fact, a Kaji temple where people think, they have sinned in some fashion, and the Kaji are, God's will. People buy up the Kaji parts from, medical reasons. You know, emphasis has been put into the world to see how it has been changed. It's not just like our Earth, but with giant monsters attacking it. The fights are all really well done. It is literally a flurry of motion, and it's all over a lot of times. Crimson Typhoon and Cherno Alpha are taken out very quickly, and it does demonstrate how nasty the Kaji are getting. We're running out of options real quick. Even the knife head fight in the very beginning shows the danger. One moment of laxity, it's over. The music itself is very, very good, and I rarely ever notice music. So if at any point in time I think in a movie, this is good music, it really is. And because, of course, not all movies are great and wonderful and perfect, the bad, some of the Jaegers don't really get much in the way of face time. Cherno Alpha and Crimson Typhoon are destroyed pretty much the instant you see them activated for a fight. We're told all about how great and what a long and illustrious combat history they have. We don't see it. It's not great storytelling. Even having a flashback or a newsreel of them showing them beating up Kaji, rather than being told, well, they have 6 or 7 kills. Obviously, they're very good crews. We don't get to see it. It could have been much better. And the last Kaji, the Category 5, was unimpressive. I guess he was bigger, but it didn't really look it. Eh, Striker Yuka pretty much disassembled him anyway, so it was built up as being this big horror, utter destroyer of worlds, and eh, we never really got to see him shine all that well. There is a director's cut that has like an hour's worth of cut footage, and I hope it does expand upon the fights to a degree. Well, that was my thoughts on the film. I really hope people go out and watch it. I'd really like to see a sequel or a prequel or anything. So, hope you found this review informative. Thank you.